19th to order. It's 9:04 a.m. We'll begin with the pledge. Jim, Tom, please lead us.
Join me, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
New appointments to the commission. Ty Warner.
We do have one appointment. Mayor Melton was not able to be here today, so we have Dwayne Halliburton from the Gary Common Council in Mayor Melton's place. Nice to have you here, Dwayne.
Welcome. Roll call. Candace.
Kyle Allen, Dwayne Arndt, Jenny Byer, Thomas Black,
Present.
Austin Bonta, Kevin Brodsky,
Here.
Jim Burge,
Here.
Robert Carnahan,
Here.
Bill Carroll, Tim Clayton, John Costas, Tom Dermody,
Present.
Dinah Dumbrus,
Present.
Denise Siebert,
Here.
Bill Emerson,
Here.
Connie Grammarosa, Jonathan Haley,
Here.
Dwayne Halliburton,
Present.
Keisha Hardaway, Bonnie Foxworth,
Here.
Tony Hendricks, Vanessa Hernandez Orange, Josh Huddleston, Lori Hunt, Justin Keel, Scott Keenan, Peter Land,
Here.
Tom McDermott, Jack McGraw, Wendy Miss, Edward Morales,
Here.
Angie Nelson Deitch,
Present.
Randall Niemeyer,
Present.
David Phelps,
Present.
Linda Pompey,
Present.
Jim Pressel, Barb Regnitz, Lisa Rosenkrantz,
Present.
Rick Reifa,
Here.
Warren Schock,
Here.
Tom Schmidt,
Here.
Steve Spivard, Gerald Swets, Sharon Zwido,
Here.
Mary Tanis,
Present.
Jim Tunn,
Present.
George Toppel, Andy Vesquez,
Here.
C.J. Whitmer, John Jokic,
Here.
and I see Mr. Allen has joined us too. We have 31 in attendance, and we do have a quorum of the full commissions.
Great news. And by the way, we're working, Representative Pressel was to be replaced from the governor's office, so we're not sure why that hasn't happened yet, but we will follow up with that. Public comment, we do have one individual, David Wright with the Gary Public Transportation.
You want to go to announcements? It's up to you.
Thank you.
We'll do that announcements. Okay.
Approval of minutes, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and a second, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So, as many of you know, or all of you know, we've been working with State Board of Accounts to work together to improve our relationship and see how not only can they help us and listen to our concerns, but how can we help them and work together as a team, because sometimes, well, a lot of times they have to deal with the legislature and some of the things that are from the legislature, and it's been great. We have them in person.
You know, it's not uncommon for those that are on GAP to not have their financial statements prepared for 2 years after they close their books, because they don't have them ready to go. So, I mean, 3 or 4 people that are solely designated to helping those individuals out.
So a question, by the way, I've had the opportunity to work with Paul over the years. At some point, he'll finally share how he really feels and be more direct. But
I don't, It is true. I don't really beat things around the bush. It is the way it is. But we have to work through that. That's the level that's what we have to work with. You know, you'd be surprised how many communities will pay somebody $500,000 to come in and get their financial statements ready for an audit, and then complain that they're paying $80,000 for the audit bill. It happens all the time. But they don't think anything about paying the $500,000 that it takes to do that gap, to get that gap audit ready. And you know, one of the things, and this is not even here, but it's something everybody in your government, it's gonna cost you a lot of money. And it's not me, don't blame me. Wanna have to put all their financial data through this. It's called the FDTA. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's real. And it's going to happen by 2027. And it's probably going to change everybody's chart of accounts. It's going to change everything.
What type of increase you're looking at when you say it's gonna cost a lot more? Nobody knows because it hasn't been
Nobody
done.
knows because it hasn't been done. I mean, that's what we're looking at right now. We're trying to identify and work through what does the new chart of accounts look like that can actually feed up into this. And then the next step is to talk with the vendors that work with the communities on that. And then what's that gonna cost to do that conversion? And I guarantee you, I don't think the states will pick it up.
So bottom line.
Because they're not the one dictating.
If you don't do it, you don't get the money.
You're not gonna get the money. And that goes down to any kind of, like I say, if you want a bond, you're not gonna get it.
Even with a local bond? Oh,
The Security Exchange Commission is the one dictating it. The locals are gonna say you have to do this.
Are they-
Everybody.
They're gonna have a schooling for this? to
Well,
train them?
we definitely will.
Oh,
I mean, this will become real, you know, in 25 and 26. But it's something that, you know, when we look forward into 2027, that's gonna become real. Because right now, that's the implementation date. What they have not yet said is which machine language they're using. Of course, this is the federal government on how they work. Okay, y'all got a lot of COVID money. You saw how many times they changed the rules during the game. It changes all the time. So we don't know those answers yet. That's why we're working on our end on it. But it is something that will impact every one of your governments.
What was the title of that again?
FDTA, Financial Data Transparency Act.
Ty, if I could, for you, did we submit our emergency resolution to them?
That's what precipitated this whole
All right,
visit, so, yeah.
I just wanted to go on the record that the town of Cedar Lake passed a similar resolution Tuesday night, and I was directed to turn it over to Ty Warner, so you're welcome to have that too if you want.
And
I'm
so-
gonna let Kendra address the resolution, if you wanna talk about the resolution.
Please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kendra Leatherman. I'm the General Counsel and Legislative Director for the State Board of Accounts. I don't know that we've received yet a copy of the Cedar Lake resolution officially,
I
but
can give it to you.
it's okay. We got it. Somebody, sent it our way, I think maybe in the first reading of the resolution. So a few things that I'd like to do today, because I think at a basic level, there's a little bit of a misunderstanding about how the Board of Accounts works and like what our agency is required to do and some of the other outside factors that determine, not necessarily just for the people in this building, but for all local governments, how the audit cycle works and like what determines audit costs, et cetera. So couple things. Our agency, as Paul mentioned, was created in 1909 to do a financial examination of all the local accounts. So we are required by state statute to examine every entity that gets public money no less than once every 4 years. So that is the state requirement, once at least every 4 years, okay? There are other reasons outside of kind of that bare minimum threshold that determine how often someone is audited. So statute allows us to audit someone more frequently if they have a requirement under federal law, which Paul mentioned before is a federal single audit. So if you're an entity that expends more than $750,000 a year in federal financial assistance, which is federal dollars, you will have to have a federal single audit. Because we are the designated external auditor for all state and local government, what we say is, okay, we're gonna make sure that they don't have to have 2 audits. And so we do your financial audit at the same time we do your federal audit, and therefore we perform that service kind of simultaneously, right? So you have an audit requirement under state law, you have an audit requirement under federal law. What we do is perform a federal single audit that really gets you, 2 bangs for your buck there. And also, another one of the requirements under statute, it says that we can move somebody up in the audit cycle if they have outstanding debt. So for, maybe not necessarily for this entity, but for those of you that are on, I think almost everyone here represents another local unit of government. So if you have outstanding debt and S&P says that, hey, in order to either issue new debt or in order to us to rate this current debt that you have, you're gonna have to be on an audit cycle every other year. That is pretty common. That's, again, we perform that service, but it's really the local decisions that people have made at your units of government that determine how often that occurs. Also, something similar to that would be if you guys have I know a lot of people right now, as a result of ARPA, have been working with IFA to have loans under the basically Clean Water Act, but also state and local water. They require an audit every so often in order for you to maintain good status with them. So although we are the ones that's performing that service, it's not necessarily us dictating that you're having to have an audit every so often. Statute kind of says the bare minimum, and then local choices move people up further in the audit. I saw you had a question, sir.
So something like a bond at the county level,
Yeah.
would that be going through the same process?
Yes, so it depends. Not every time does someone issue debt, does that mean they're gonna be on an every other year, every 2-year audit cycle? What we do as a part of our service that we provide to our auditees is that we coordinate with S&P and IFA, General, or Moody's, and they'll say, hey, they with their
And is this
rating
is
agencies.
this for new bonds or existing bonds?
Either or. So
Either or.
we don't determine that. The rating agencies that has rated your debt determines how often they want to see that. It can happen on either end. So, sometimes a rating agency will say, hey, in order to issue this new debt, you have to be audited on this type of cycle. Or sometimes if there's something that's happened, after the debt has been issued, and either you're gonna retire the bond and maybe issue new, they're like, well, they can go to an every 3-year audit cycle, or they just kind of won't. We get updates from them on a quarterly basis. So really, if you're doing that, you should be working with, not as close as when you're issuing new debt is I know everyone works really closely with their municipal advisors or financial advisors, and also their bond counsel, but also the question that they should be asking you that I know they're not, and that I've been raking up them over the coals for, is when was the last time you had a true audit, and do you need one before you go to the market? So I just thought that would bring some context into, I think specifically the most recent audit we did here. The reason it was done, the majority of the funds actually had to do with expending federal dollars. And so under state statute, because you're allowed to recoup costs from your federal funds for your audit costs, those are actually charged at what we call the full cost rate. And then, one thing that I think people misunderstand too is that although we are the designated independent external auditors, there is an option for local units of government to procure their own. There is a little bit of a process to do that, and then you're getting rates from the private sector, and just as a general rule, it's going to be twice as much as what we provide under statute. So I thought that might give some context, just explain how the audit cycle works. One of the things that I know that we do that really lots of government do, but kind of unique about us is, when we take the audit plan and determine how many units we have to audit in a particular year, the number of staff that we have on hand actually isn't sufficient enough to meet that local government needs. So we contract with private examiners to audit on our behalf. And that contracted rate for us is more than we can recoup from the local unit of government. And so our agency budget fills that gap, okay? So, that is something that, although, I know there's been a lot of discussion about the state should pay for this, the state is paying for probably at least a proportion of, for a taxing unit, they're almost always paying for 50% of the financial part of the audit, and even in a federal audit, if we've contracted out, the state is paying for a share of it. So, yes, sir.
Our last audit, I was in the exit interview, and the State Board of Accounts told our current clerk treasurer that they never find anything that is a repeat. That our clerk treasurer handles that, and the next audit it's not there. And so do you have a lot of problems with repeats coming constantly?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, we just, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll answer that a little bit. Actually, we had such a bad problem. I mean, it's a horrible problem. We actually brought it to our legislative audit committee and had them create a process where now people that have a finding twice have to create a corrective action plan where we give them 6 months to correct their problems. And unfortunately, currently, there's a lot of people that don't care. They're going to get a letter from our legislative audit committee telling them to correct the problem. And if they don't, the next step would be to get an invite up to Indianapolis to go in front of our committee and tell them why they can't correct their problem. So I applaud your community for correcting your problems. But yes, it's a horrendous problem. Before we created this, you would go there and you could find 9 separate times in a row where people didn't correct the problem. And it might be that from overspending funds to non-reconcilement to not paying their withholdings on time, and then just continually costing the community money. So happy your community is good, but the majority are not in favor.
Paul, we have one other individual to introduce.
Did you have any more questions about your specific ordinance?
I'd just like to make you a compliment for the people who were at the Indiana Township Association training this past week, the Tanner Hubert complainer, and also your outreach for 5 different locations across the state. However, that still creates quite a problem for a number of the 1,000+ townships. Inadequate computer systems. It puts a big strain on a very small budget. But I do appreciate the outreach, and there could be even more opportunities for township trustees. There's only 2 of us here that I'm aware of. But I'm sure that other entities have similar situations. So I suppose that you do those training sessions for them as well. I want to compliment you on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Hi, I'm Beth Kelly. I'm the Deputy State Examiner, and my position is over all of the audits. So I grew up in local government. My grandmother was a clerk treasurer of a small town for 30 years. So she's very pleased to see me in this position. She's 95 years old right now. So she talks to me all every 4 years, but just know that they're there to help you. So if you have any questions while they're there, feel free to ask them. If something's not going right, contact me directly. I'm happy to help. I'll work with you and the auditors to work out the problem. Hopefully that's few and far between. We do have a young staff now, so a lot of new college graduates, between 1 and 5 years. So I do ask to have a little patience with them. They're still learning. You guys have a ton of knowledge in this room. So as these younger kids come out there to audit you, I learned a lot from the people that I audited. So share your knowledge with them, talk to them, encourage them to talk to you. You know, this Gen Y, you know, they're afraid to have this face-to-face communication. They would rather send you an email or send you a chat. Let them know, hey, I'm in the office today. Come see me. Let's talk about this. And if you get pushback, that's where I need to know. I need to know so I can go out there and help them and give them the training to talk one-on-one and face-to-face with people, because it is very uncomfortable for them. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning, and we look forward to further discussion.
Other questions? David?
David Phelps, Town Council President of Beverly Shores, and I would point out that the clerk treasurer from Beverly Shores is in the audience as well. We just went through an audit. I'm a retired CPA, so I have a little knowledge about what goes on. The question I have for you is, do you set up budgets in advance of the audit on specifically how many hours you anticipate it would take?
Yeah, and hopefully our clerk treasurer's here, right? At the entrance conference, they had that conversation with you, and they would have told at the entrance conference the anticipated length of time and the anticipated cost for that time frame.
I was at the entrance conference and appreciated that opportunity. And I don't think they were forthcoming until I asked the question of what the anticipated cost would be. The other thing I would ask is, do they keep detailed time records like we do in public accounting of where they spend their time?
Of course they do, and then they give those to us every week. But I hate to tell you though, you're never going to get that we spent 5 hours on cash or 10 hours on receivables or 13 hours looking at claims or anything like that. And as an accounting firm, you're not going to give that either. A firm, and we get accounting bills all the time, they will give you that their auditor spent this many hours on this specific, like whether it's the financial statement audit or whether it's the federal audit, and there's your rate. And when we audit, that's what we're going to look at too, is that rate what's against your contract? And are you paying in accordance with that? They're not going to give you that detail either. No accounting firm is going to.
Well, we can have a different discussion offline. I was the CFO of a couple public companies, and we had maybe a different relationship with our auditing staff than what you're alluding to. The question the reason for the question is, to the essence of the resolution, there were two. One was fiscal, about the cost, in particular the cost to smaller institutions like ourselves that has less than a $600,000 general fund, and townships who are way below that number as well.
You do realize our costs that we charge is statutory, created by the legislature. They set that rate.
Well, and I think what we were looking for is you to be our advocate with the legislature, because you know what the numbers are.
My problem here, though, is if I say I want less, what am I going to pay my 279 people and my 80 CPA? I don't have any money.
Of our state
But that's why we want to continue to have a
Right. I mean, we can have that talk afterwards on how to do it, but I mean, I'm not a legislative member.
I understand.
Never have been.
I understand. I think everybody in this room pretty much understands the state government structure. But the other thing that was on that resolution was the accountability. So we don't get a bill; it gets deducted from our tax draw. And
so again, that let me just clarify some things. That is also set in statute, and that ensures that we actually get paid on time. So the fact that it's deducted from your tax draw is in statute. You do get an itemized bill of the rate we're working on. We send that both to the county auditor of the entity you're auditing. If you're talking about a specific unit of government, it goes to the county auditor, it comes from that. And then we also send a similar copy to the fiscal officer of the unit. So that amount from your taxing unit comes from, your property tax. That is set out in statute to ensure that we get paid, because we are another part of state government. So,
and this is where we ask a lot of, that we want to improve State Board of Accounts and our concerns. They also have issues with the legislature, I'll say it so they don't have to, that they're gonna need our help to go speak to senators, to go speak to representatives, to help, and that's why I think it's important that we started the relationship today, being here, working together. So, we do have some clerk treasurers that, are gonna start working with them, maybe meeting briefly today after this meeting, and we look forward to building that relationship together, just like we have with NDOT. You know, NDOT is here, and we're working on projects with them as well. So thank you for being here today, and we look forward to more discussion. Are there any last comments or questions? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, just some clarification. So this resolution, was it passed by the 8 board executive membership, or was it the full commission?
This was passed, I believe, by the full commission.
Did I miss something? Okay.
I think so.
Full commission plus the local units of government in the 3 counties.
Okay, so at this full commission meeting, we passed the resolution. I must have missed it. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Probably their first applause they ever get.
I like that.
Well, appreciate you being here.
I'd also like just to take a minute and recognize 2 individuals, Ann Wykenot and Lisa Todd. I know they're here. If you don't mind standing, be careful of your head. I'll tell you what, they have been through the rigor here over the last few weeks with bus maintenance audits, and then turning around with FTA audits for drug and alcohol for transportation. Ann and Lisa, I know, were at our transportation facility at 4:30 in the morning on one day. So I just want to recognize those 2 for the great work, because it's not easy. The last item on my list is the LaPorte clerk treasurer is here as a guest, and she really detests when I recognize her publicly. So I would like to welcome Courtney Parkville. If you could stand and wave to everybody. So, very much. Ty, anything to add?
No, that's great. Just lots of audits going around. So we do have, this is just for general knowledge, what you alluded to. This is the first time that at least anyone currently at NERC has experienced a drug and alcohol audit. That's not for NERC staff, just to be fair. We fund, as you know, 7 transit systems in Northwest Indiana, and so the Federal Transit Administration decided to randomly pick us, not because something was amiss, but decided to randomly pick us this year for a drug and alcohol audit to make sure that those transit operators are complying with the law and what they do with monitoring for possible substance abuse issues and other things. So again, Ann and Lisa have been phenomenal, and also for the subrecipients have been great in their cooperation and getting speedy responses to the FTA. So thank you.
We'll move to transportation. Kevin Brightsky.
The Technical Planning or Transportation Committee met on Tuesday, September 10th, and through the informational reports are given by NERC staff, an update of the 2024 Notice of Funding Availability, known as NOFA, call for projects was given by Charles Bradsky. The 2024 second quarter safety, travel time, reliability, freight, and congestion update was presented by Grace Kennedy. Finally, the draft of the CMAQ, congestion mitigation, air quality, second performance period, midpoint performance plan, was presented by Tom Vanderboot. That's on pages 7 to 11 of your booklet, which I believe you'll present right now. This is informational.
Here we go. Got it. All right, thank you. All right, thank you. This morning I will be presenting some information about our draft CMAQ second performance period midpoint performance plan. This is a technical report that we provide to the Indiana Department of Transportation and to the Federal Highway Administration. So it doesn't require any action from the Commission. but it does kind of give you some insight into some of the work that we do as a metropolitan planning organization,
But we didn't ignore LaPorte County. We did contact Paladin and discuss with them what they see, because they provide nonprofit transportation as well. And then also, this outlines a pilot program that could be expanded, based on how successful is this as it moves forward. Is it something that will work to be expanded into LaPorte County as well? So we did respond to that question and make sure that those items were elaborated on in our response. So this did go to public comment, and that was the one comment that we received. So NERC worked with Trans-Systems to see what are the needs of nonprofit transportation providers in the area. Boys and Girls Club and Goodwill were two of our groups that we were interested in working with, in addition to our community foundations, and that group together served as kind of a steering committee for this project. As Kevin mentioned, the 22 nonprofits are listed in your packet. Many of them said that lack of transportation options is a barrier for their clients receiving services. And I think we can all recognize that if you can't get to where you need to be, that makes it hard to do what you need to do. So we had 10 that provide service directly for transportation, 5 that worked with vouchers or passes for whether that was Uber or local bus service, and then 7 of them did not provide any sort of transportation service. And obviously the cost of operation, difficulty hiring, just where they're located, insurance and transportation not being at regular times are things that impact their ability to provide transportation. Also, some of the organizations that we talked with serve kind of sensitive populations, and so working with them for providing transportation opportunities requires a little more finesse than what you can start a project with. So that helped us narrow down to our 6 agencies: Pines Retirement Village, Maria Reiner Center, Opportunity Enterprises, Health Visions Midwest, Porter County Aging and Community Services, and Goodwill Industries. So we looked at, do any of these agencies have vehicles that are not being utilized for parts of the day or parts of the week even, that might be able to put those vehicles into a shared resource, not necessarily, hey, everybody sell all your vehicles to a new group, but be able to accept phone calls saying, hey, we've got someone who needs a ride. So the next piece is that we had to determine what would a successful shared transportation model look like. So we said, to solve the mobility gaps, especially for the nonprofit clients, in a cost-effective way by leveraging the capacity of multiple providers. So that's pooling the resources and looking at how can we make this work for everybody in a way that doesn't hurt the bank too much.
Stephen, can I ask a quick question?
Please.
On these nonprofits, are they charging the client at all for a ride? Or free rides?
It depends on the particular group. Some of them I think are, some of them it might be tied in with if there are membership dues or field trip fees, that kind of thing. But part of how the pilot project would work, and I'll get there in a couple slides, but part of how that would work is that if agency X needs a ride and agency Y has availability, there would be a payment made to offset that cost. So we looked at two basic types of providing this service. One is a broker model, where you've got a manager who helps the providers see who needs what and when, or a centralized model where the fleet gets moved over to that agency and they coordinate all of the trips that are needed. And we spoke with a couple of different groups. A good case study on the broker model was Denver's Ride Alliance. They receive the calls and distribute the rides as availability exists. Now, interestingly, with a broker model, you would still notify the broker of trips that your agency is planning to make. That way, they know where vehicles are and are not available. And this could be with just phone calls, or it could be with software solutions. The centralized model, actually in Fort Wayne area, the Community Transportation Network has a centralized model where they kind of started as a broker model, but over time they determined that a centralized fleet made more sense for them. And that's not to say that if we were to start with a broker model that it has to become a centralized model. That's just that what worked for them in their community. You have to consider, the size of Fort Wayne and the surrounding counties all plays into that. So again, this is sort of just a graphic to show what that broker model would look like. So your agency contacts the broker, and the providing nonprofits can either say, yes, we have capacity for that, or no, we don't. And then that information gets relayed back to the requesting nonprofit. So there's a range of how much money would be involved in this, from very little to a very integrated system that would require a lot of resources that everybody had to pick up on. Our project here kind of recommends something in the middle, using the Google Workplace, which for those of you that might not be familiar with that, it looks like Word or Excel, but you can share these documents immediately. You can have multiple people working on the document at the same time. So that's a very quick way to say, we've got this request, we've got this availability, and it all shows up quickly. Obviously, there are some issues about how do you handle payment in that, because it's not an integrated part of that. And also, people have to be checking it regularly. So the things that need to be discussed, and this is not a thing that NERPC needs to discuss. This is something that the agencies involved in the pilot program need to discuss, are how are those agreements going to work? How will payment work, cancellations and group rides, and also all of the details need to be kind of hammered out in the process of determining who can make those trips happen. And all of those items on that right column here will need to be hammered out in the details. And obviously, when you're dealing with nonprofits, all of them are going to want their interests protected. So, their legal teams are going to be involved in reviewing all those letters of understanding. So this is not a short process, but hopefully it will be a fruitful one. And a couple things that we really want to stress, and I want to make sure that I've mentioned, this really is about collaboration with the groups that are doing work in our communities that our governmental agencies are not doing because it is not their purpose to be doing those. These are nonprofit organizations. You know your communities, you know the work that they do. This is not intended to replace or to become a part of the public transportation network. So this would not be transit as such. This is something that would be working together with our public or our nonprofit agencies. So it wouldn't take anything away from existing transit operations, and it's not the intent of this that NERC is funding this. The goal of this is that while we may facilitate some meetings to get them moving on this, the real purpose of this is that our organizations that we know are doing good work be able to have a place where they can work together to make this happen and give it the best chance of succeeding that they have. And so staff has recommended, and Transportation Committee has recommended adoption of this plan to give it sort of a formal approval from NERC, from our communities, that this is something that's important to us going forward. So,
Ty Warner.
Great, thank you, Stephen. I just wanted to underscore something Stephen said, just to make sure it's clear why NERC engaged in this study to start with. So you all have these nonprofit communities that work in your own agencies. Some of you serve on boards on some of those nonprofits, so they serve the clients that are your constituents. Those nonprofits, particularly Goodwill and Boys and Girls Club, came to NERC after noticing that there were buses that they own that are basically sitting vacant for a good chunk of the time. And so when you have all these nonprofits that are trying to do good work and trying to maximize the dollars that they have available to them, but yet they're all buying different buses that are sitting vacant a good part of the week, they came to NERC to try to ask, can you help us bring everybody together and do this study to see how to maximize those resources? So just to underscore that again, this is not, I mentioned the 7 transit systems that NERC funds, that's all. These agencies are not trying to get FTA funds or federal funds. That's a whole different ball of wax. That leads to the audits that the State Board of Accounts was just talking about. So that's the kind of stuff that complicates things greatly. This is just NERC trying to be helpful to the nonprofits on how to better maximize their own resources on the local level. So that's really what this is about.
Angie, Mayor Angie.
Yeah, so community foundations funded this, but was there any request to the community foundation of LaPorte County at all?
No, again, that was really, it was Goodwill and Boys and Girls Club that kind of first noted the need for this. And I think they sort of put forward Lake and LaPorte as Lake and Porter, I'm sorry, as the 2 counties that they saw that need most in. Not to take anything away from the need that does exist in LaPorte County, but again, as a pilot program, kind of start small and see how it can grow.
Just wondering about the funding.
No, I
sit on the
totally
board.
understand that,
I don't
absolutely.
think we discussed it, so.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
I think it could be, sorry, I think as you said in the earlier slide, or it could be expanded to.
Yes.
To consider the portals.
David?
Sorry I missed the public comment period, but the question that I would raise is, was Valparaiso University contacted, or were they considered in this study? Because they run a bus fleet for their constituents, about 2,500 people. So
I don't remember if they were on that initial list.
They may have been contacted on the initial survey, or I think initially we sent out a request for it. If you're interested, we will send you the survey. I don't recall that we received any response from that.
I would imagine they were on that initial email because the foundations sent out the emails saying, "Are you interested in this?" And then they forwarded us back that information of those that responded. It's hard for me to imagine that they were not, that they didn't, that someone at Valpo University didn't receive that email, but they didn't respond.
yeah, I would encourage University generally to consider Valparaiso University as a big impact to the economy in Northwest Indiana. And, you know, if we can include them in some of these things, it would be a positive gesture.
Further questions? Okay, this is a I'm sorry, James.
Just a quick question. One, the overall concept I think is solid. We try to make better use of idle resources. One point though that you might want to add when you get into the devil's always in the details, right? Is maintenance, repair costs, and insurance, and that can be pretty murky sharing between different agencies. But I didn't see it listed as a consideration to explore and the facts.
Right, and I think that's one of those items that we'll try and make sure to bring that to everybody's attention as we help them kind of get to a point where they're writing memorandums of understanding, because you're right. Mayor Dermody will tell you that maintenance cost for transportation vehicles is up a lot from even just a couple years ago.
And who pays for it? Is it something,
Yes.
someone else?
Yeah.
Can't run.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I just
Yes.
point out that I found this analogous to the local food study that we did about 10 years ago, to find people to collaborate, to cooperate, to connect, to take over these services. We're not really stepping in to do this. That's really for their business, but our business is to help any of these groups out here that have social purpose to the benefit of our communities. And that's the way I've seen this all along.
With that, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
I have Mary Tanis as a second. Yes. Further comments? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
The next meeting of the Transportation Committee is scheduled for October 1st, 2024 at 10 a.m. in this room. Thank you, sir.
Another good state partner, Matt Deitchley, INDOT.
Morning, everybody. Just a couple things I wanted to kind of put on your radar. As you probably all have heard over the last year or so, INDOT has a goal of reducing severe injury or fatal accidents on all Indiana roads by 25% over the next 10 years. As a direct result of that, we have a new special call for safety projects, which I'm sure all of you have heard of this before, but I just want to make sure it is on your radar. That went live on September 3rd. These are called HSIP funds. So there's a one-page application that can be found on our website. It is due by 4 p.m. on Friday. That's Central Time Friday, October 11th. So if you haven't already started and you're interested in that, I'd encourage you to get moving on that. It's going to fund about $50 million worth of projects across the state in safety projects specifically. And we're looking at typically lower cost projects that can kind of move the needle. So we're talking about lane markings, raised medians, right sizing, things like that, pedestrian facilities. So There's also a full list of the work types you can see on our INDOT website if you're interested. But I do want to alert you that this is expected to be highly competitive. So please make sure that your projects are shovel ready and that your application is as detailed as possible. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me or anybody else at INDOT in the LaPorte district, and we'll help out however we can. The last thing I want to bring your attention to, I'm sure most of you already know that there's been some significant construction at 30 and 60, on 30 near 65. And it's going to get a little more difficult in the next 3 weeks, but with a real goal in mind. So what we're doing is concrete patching out there, and that's been going on through the summer. The patches we're finding out there are significantly more than, I wouldn't say we expected, but it's going to need some more work than we originally had planned. So to avoid us spending 80 days out there and bothering everyone, we're going to do pretty intense work over the next 3 weeks, and that's going to be pretty inconvenient, but we're going to take those 80 days down to about 15 days of work. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be closing 2 lanes in each direction on US 30, and also closing the ramps for traffic that's accessing 30 from 65. Now, the ramps to get onto 65 from 30 will all be open. But if you're on 65, you will no longer be able to get off of onto US 30. So all this is going to be happening starting Sunday night, and it'll run through that following Friday morning, 24 hours a day. So the whole intent is that we run 24-hour-a-day crews and get this work done as fast as possible. That same schedule will continue for that following 3 weeks. So again, this Sunday night through Friday morning, and then the next week and the next week the same schedule. So 24 hours a day, as probably you already know, concrete patching. The cure time is what really kills us in terms of taking so long to do this work. So this is going to significantly help us. So I know it's going to be difficult. The information's out there for the public. Feel free to spread the news. You can blame us if you'd like, but hopefully 15 days of pain will limit us spilling over into spring. So I just want to make sure you guys had all seen that and you were alerting your folks about that. So I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions for Matt?
Yeah, Bob.
Robert.
I've got 3 of them. First off, we were supposed to get a turn lane on US 41 from 109th to 31 to 135th, and it was scheduled for 2022, and then I was told it's 2025. You had 160 different properties you had to get. What's the status on that?
I have to check on that for sure on where we stand. Last I heard, I think we're still trying to work through those properties, but I need to double check on that, so I'll get back to you on that one. But we have been reshuffling our projects due to the challenges we've had with letting. But that project, the big challenge has been the property acquired. So let me find out. Last I heard, I thought we were still planning for next year, but I will get back to you on my answer on that.
All right, and the second item, 153rd and 41. What is the status on that? I know you've blocked off so they can't go east and west.
Right. So we have a public hearing coming up, gosh, I want to say next month on that project. That project, the intent is an intersection improvement project. So what that will be determined as we kind of progress in this project. The conversations I've heard at this point have been J-turn looks like the most optimal way to solve the problems that are out there, but it's not been decided yet. So I believe public hearing is coming in October. So let me find out the date on that and I'll let you know.
And the third thing is the need for an arrow to turn south and north on 41. Currently, around 3 o'clock when the Hanover school gets out, I've been backed up almost to the school.
Sure.
Trying to get to 41 and have to sit through sometimes 2 to 3 lights. Okay.
Yeah, and I know our traffic engineers looked into that before. There were some challenges on why they were not doing the arrows. I'm not sure where that stands now, though, so I'll get that answer to you as well.
And when we had that federal project, we should have put it in there.
And again, I don't remember the real reason why we didn't do that. There was a solid reason why. I don't remember what it was, though. So
and you guys adjusted the light to hold it longer, but evidently it's not working right now.
So I will look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments, questions? Thank you, Matt. Let's move to Connie in place and Denneray Kane.
Good morning. A few things to report. We were pleased to host our Economic Development Administration Economic Development Representative, Darren Fleener, to NERC on July 31st. He spent about 3/4 of the day with us. He met with several communities that have potential projects that they might be seeking their traditional funds that come through the region. And then we also talked about eligibility for those projects as well as competitiveness on a regional basis. We were also able to give him a brief tour of our region. We hope he'll be able to come back and get more familiar with the needs and the projects that are pending in Northwest Indiana. Additionally, the EDA hosts several national grant competitions. We've been sending information and making outreach about 2 that are currently out. One is the Good Jobs Challenge that is tying training and workforce development to jobs that are promised by certain industry sectors. And that proposal is due by the 27th of this month. The other competition is what's called Build to Scale, and this is focused on supporting entrepreneurs, and that is due on the 28th of October. This time around, for both of those competitions, there are additional points that can be earned if you're aligned with some of the strategies of a tech hub. And we are fortunate that there is an EDA designated tech hub in Illinois that includes Northwest Indiana, which is related to the quantum computing efforts in the area. In addition, the Central Indiana area has the biotech hub if the proposal can somehow tie to those strategies. The other thing is that we spent time inviting the non-commissioned appointee, potential appointees to serve on the Economy and Place Committee. We have filled those 10 appointment spots and look forward to working with quite a few new people on the said strategy committee, which is essentially the Economy and Place Committee. And then lastly, last month, an RFP was issued for some consulting services related to our SEDS update. We received 2 responses on Monday, and we'll be evaluating those responses later today. Can I answer any questions?
Questions for Denneray?
George, just make a comment. Mayor Vanza and Councilman Vasquez and I are involved in the Salt Creek project, and we meet again on October 2nd. I wondered if, I know Richie's been involved in it, but are you involved in it from the economic development standpoint? We're just at the very beginning. Mayor?
It's difficult to hear because of this blower, so I'm not sure I heard everything, but.
Are you okay?
I don't know if my voice is any louder.
I can speak louder.
We're talking about the Salt Creek project with the kayaking. Are you guys involved?
I don't know that Dennery has
I'm
been
not
involved in that. I think
particularly
Mitch and Man have had some past conversations about that, but we can certainly.
I think it might be a possibility because it could be a boon to the whole region.
Further comments? Thank you. Oh, yes, Mary.
I just wanted to thank the Transportation Committee because, you know, we've had this ongoing discussion with NERC about the bike trail going into Illinois, which Dyer has opposed, through into Fort Heights, and we're looking for different ways that we can solve that problem. At our park board meeting with the town council meeting, we were also discussing the problem with getting people from the north side to the south side of the town and vice versa. But what's important is getting this bike trail from the Pennsy straight through to Illinois. And we would like to suggest that maybe this bridge system, we talked about it the other day at the technical planning meeting, we'd like to have a bridge across those entities to help us with safety. And I was really happy at the end of the meeting. We talked to 2 different groups of people that were willing to help us. We do have an alternate plan that's just not as good as having the bridge system over. We want to take a closer look at that and coordinate that with NERC as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to the environment. Bill Emerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, good morning, everyone. The Environment Committee met on August 1st, so this meeting since our last full commission meeting. We had a presentation of the final report on the Coastal Hazards Resilience Needs Assessment, which is an initiative of the DNR, statewide, state DNR, FEMA. They have communities kind of do an internal assessment of their needs as far as resilience, not just on the coast, on the Lake Michigan coast, but all throughout the watershed, along waterways, infrastructure that might be at risk of damage with increased flooding and things like that, roads and things like that that could be at risk. So I want to thank Ty and Kathy Leeser and Jen Birchfield for taking the initiative of meeting with the majority of the communities in the NERC area, which is not an easy thing to do, to set up all those meetings. I know I'm the president of the Environment Committee, and it's a challenge to get Lake County together on one day to meet and go over it. And so I want to thank you guys for that. And that's the main thing that we discussed at that meeting. Our next meeting is November 7th at 9 o'clock, right?
Thank you, Bill. Other business?
That's good. Comment about I have the serving a steering committee for Rising Indiana, and we're next to an item, and I know Kathy Leeser, and I thought it might be a good idea to perhaps invite them to come and talk about that program. So,
yeah, we have talked about that. We'll get them on a future agenda, absolutely.
James?
I'd just like to mention that since at the roll call that Jenny Byer and Mayor Walton have joined me. So that's just to the corner for.
Thank you. Further business, Taiwan?
Yeah, just two very quick things. First of all, you may have noticed a slight change in our agenda today, which is directly reflective of our new committee structure that we are in phasing of moving into. So some have already met as the new committee, some will be meeting as the new committee later. If you haven't been to the most recent meetings when this was voted on and discussed, we basically simplified in a nutshell 12 subcommittees to 4. So I think this helps everybody, much more streamlined, much more effective use of resources, and much more easier for the public to understand how to get involved in the process. So we are phasing into that. Those of you that responded to the survey to ask for your committee preferences, thank you for that. I was hoping to have that figured out before this meeting, didn't quite get there, but definitely as we head into October, you'll be getting those committee assignments as I work with the mayor to finalize those. So thank you for that. The other thing I just wanted to mention, I put this out there, this article that I wrote in 2014, and I just stumbled on it, and I just said, what happened in 10 years? And I think it's pretty good, it holds up. So I made copies of this this is 5 ideas for Northwestern Indiana. There's only one thing in there that I would change today, and it's a positive, is that I mentioned here in 2014 having over 130 miles of paved trail. Today we have, in 10 years time, we now have over 200 miles of paved trail in Northwest Indiana. And just for reference, in 2000, in like 1990, I think it was, we had 13 miles of paved trail, 13. So we've gone from 13 miles to 200 miles of paved trail. So that's just, I think that's worth trumpeting in Northwest Indiana.
Absolutely.
For what it's worth, pick up a copy.
And Ty will be outside to sign up. Other business?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I became acutely aware of our lack of having conference facilities recently. I'm the vice president and conference chair for the Indiana Associations of Floodplain and Stormwater Managers. And we did have a great meeting at Michigan City, the Blue Chip. However, that was about our only choice up here. Bill is the northern director. I'm going to have some with me, and we kind of got people up here. They loved it up here, but we just don't have the venues. I understand the Hard Rock is going to be building a hotel. At this time, we're losing a lot of tourism and conference capabilities. So hopefully, something's going to be coming up in the near future, over the next decade at least, because Radisson left us.
Absolutely. Josh?
Lake County's going, there's a convention center. Hopefully a lot of those.
Can we host 1,000 people?
probably owes $10,000.
Outstanding.
Do you know the location of that yet?
I mean, I do, but. I would know where everyone's going.
I had heard a number of different locations.
Yeah, no, it's still out.
All right.
George?
Yes, George Topple, Union Township trustee, Porter County. I've met with Indiana Office of Technology for a number of hours on some of the things that they're doing, and there's a lot of opportunities to coordinate and get better pricing on some materials. I wondered if we might also consider having Indiana Office of Technology make a presentation on their new project.
I think that's a wonderful idea. In fact, I can't remember if I talked about this at a previous commission meeting, but we honestly didn't know the Indiana Office of Technology existed until about 2 years ago or less. And they've been hugely helpful now. And I did mention this at a previous meeting. There are all sorts of resources available to you that we weren't aware that we had access to, and you have access. So our website that is that we revised through them not too long ago, a few months back, is all due to Indiana Office of Technology.
And they're
extremely
opening up
helpful.
that to virtually all entities, townships, cities, towns, counties. I think it needs to be coordinated so that walking around sense when you try to find something.
Yep.
Sharing.
That's a great idea.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be remiss not to mention LaPorte County Tourism. They gave us a big grant in support of the conference, so thank you.
And we also have the Civic Auditorium in LaPorte. You're welcome to use. We can host not 10,000, but 1,200. So you're welcome to
Well, you
join
got a
us.
hotel nearby. I've been at the Civic Auditorium.
All right, announcements. Robert.
Yes. September 17th through the 23rd is Constitution Week. And September 17th was Constitutional Day. Since 1955, presidents have proclaimed Constitution Week to remind all Americans that the Constitution is an important part of our daily lives. It protects our rights. It shapes our public debate. It's what millions of have taken an oath to defend. Take time this week to learn more about the Constitution, the words we live by.
When you discuss debate, maybe both sides need to re-look at that and get back to what's important for the residents. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to thank State Board of Accounts for being here, and we appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you directly and explain, but how we feel if we can build a relationship that will solve both of our problems.
Mr. Chairman,
Other options, and Indiana Department of Transportation, thank you again, as always.
I was fortunate enough to be on the call with Paul, and Tom handled it very well. I think it was such a cordial meeting. I was delightfully surprised. The discussion was very cordial.
Well, we look forward to building that relationship, working together. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I want to thank you and Ty Werner for allowing this to happen, because, and all the other staff members. Well, thank you.
it takes a team doing business. So with that, Ty?
David Wright with Gary Public Transportation
Yes.
Corporation wanted to make a quick comment.
I will try to be real quick, and this is mostly an invitation and a call to action. America Walks, and that's an organization we've gotten funding from in the past, so I'd like to pay attention to the organizations we actually got money from. They are sponsoring the second annual Week Without Driving, and we're going to be observing that here in Northwest Indiana. So we put together a local flyer. Take that and pass that around. And our call to action for the commission is pretty simple, twofold though. One, try to be involved. Especially if you live or work in one of the 11 communities that we serve, or in Michigan City, Valparaiso. Instead of taking, driving directions when you're going to a meeting or going to lunch, click pedestrian, walking, or transit. See if that option is there for you. If it is, just try it one day or so, even before a meeting. Or if you have any questions on getting around on our system, I've got cards, give me a call. Secondly, one thing we would like to have done is when we do this in 2025, I would love to see NERC meetings accessible through transit. We took a look at all the other MPOs, and Ty already knows how this is going to end. Every other MPO has their policy meetings and their transportation meetings transit accessible. That's every MPO that has a public transit corporation. Bloomington, Indianapolis, South Bend, Fort Wayne. As a matter of fact, Fort Wayne, South Bend, and Indianapolis, their transit agencies host some of these meetings. Thank you very much. So the opportunity is there to provide access to those constituents in Northwest Indiana that can't drive here to Portage. I'm not saying you break your lease and move to Hammond or Gary or Michigan City. However, there's the possibility of and the opportunity to put some of these meetings on the road. As I mentioned, Indigo hosts some of the Indy MPO meetings. And Transco hosts some ACOG meetings. Same thing for CityLink in Fort Wayne. So, I'm not saying we have to host them. We can. But we've hosted meetings in downtown Gary, obviously, in Merida, and downtown Hammond. And all of these locations have multiple transit options. Heck, I could take the South Shore and then take I think it's the Brown Line from the Dune Park Station of Racing. So it's possible. It's a lot, but it's possible. But considering how many decisions this commission makes and the TPC makes that affect people who don't drive, either can't drive or choose not to, having those meetings accessible would be very, very important and very crucial and beneficial to inform your decisions. So, when we do this in 2025, and there's an emergency meeting that week, I'd like to be able to use transit to get there. And if you want to participate in the week without driving, like I said, I've got business cards. Talk to me after the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We do have Opportunity Enterprises in Porter County Aging that could do demand response, but point taken that that's not a fixed route and not the most easy.
Yeah, I'd like to see someone wake up in the morning, see an emergency meeting on their schedule, and then use transit to get there.
I know we're done, but just on your way out, if you didn't get it, just want to put it, I said this earlier before the meeting started, but just want to thank again Fluid Coffee Roasters for providing coffee for today, and that is out of that.
Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Have a fantastic day.
I am.